1 minute warning, and we will start. Thank you. I still see some people standing. If you can find your seats, please. Thank you. Members of Congress, state senators, representatives, mayors, commissioners, members of the Consular Corps, religious leaders, representatives of the sponsors in attendance, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Buenas noches, shalom. My name is Jennifer Ensline. I am a member of the 30th Anniversary AMIA Attack Commemorative Committee of the Latin American Task Force and co-chair of tonight's event. On behalf of the Planning Committee, Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, tonight's gracious host organization, and all of the participating organizations represented here tonight, I welcome you to tonight's event, commemorating the 30th anniversary of the AMIA bombing. We would first like to recognize tonight's 20 co-sponsoring organizations that together with 22 participating organizations are supporting the South Florida community-wide event. Moments ago, you saw the impressive list of the participating organizations. Their names are printed on tonight's program. Please join me in recognizing them with a big round of applause. We'll pause for 1 second. We are here this evening to honor the victims of the AMIA bombing, the Jewish Center in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to demand justice, and to learn more about the continued rise of global anti-Semitism. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests who are, so much for that, who are present here tonight. Among them, diplomats and representatives from Argentina, Brazil, Canada, Germany, Guatemala, Ireland, Israel, Japan, and Uruguay. And Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levin Cava, welcome, and Broward County's Mayor Nan Rich. It is very special to note that for the first time ever, 2 important counties in South Florida have female and Jewish mayors serving at the same time. Kol hakavod. Members from the states of Florida House of Representatives and the Senate, as well as representatives from both Broward and Miami-Dade counties and the following cities: Aventura, Bal Harbour Village, Hallandale Beach, Hialeah, Hollywood, Sunny Isles Beach, and Weston. I would like to extend my sincere condolences to the family of Aventura Commissioner Michael Stern, who passed away this morning. May he rest in peace. On the morning of July 18, 1994, a car bomb destroyed the AMIA Jewish Center in Buenos Aires, leaving 85 dead and 300 wounded. This bombing remains one of the deadliest terrorist attacks ever in Argentina's history, and it happened just 2 years after the 1992 bombing of the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. The AMIA attack was, until October 7, 2023, the worst anti-Semitic attack since the end of World War II. 30 years later, we continue to come together, still remembering, still demanding, and still searching for justice. In addition to the 85 people who were killed in the bombing, we also remember Argentine federal prosecutor Alberto Nisman, who died in 2015 while acting as the chief investigator of the AMIA attack. His dedication and commitment to this case will never be forgotten. The Latin American Task Force, who are members of South Florida's Jewish community, made the decision to keep the memory of the AMIA victims alive. By convening this memorial event this year, following a longer than 15-year-old tradition led before by American Jewish Committee. In 2019, my husband Spencer and I visited the AMIA, and we were personally welcomed by the executive director, Danny Pomeranz. The visit allowed us to fully understand the attack's impact on the Argentinian society and the implications of the bombing in a whole new dimension. I am forever grateful for the opportunity. 13 days ago, on July 12, 2024, Argentina's President Javier Milei's office officially declared Hamas publicly as an international terrorist organization. Reconfirming at the same time its links to the Islamic Republic of Iran, responsible for the attacks against the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in 1992, as well as the AMIA attack in 1994. This is the first time that an Argentinian politician officially recognizes this. Argentina becomes the first country in South America to designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. We are grateful to President Milei. I would now like to introduce Rabbi Guido Cohen, representing Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, our host for this evening, to start the program with his remarks. Rabbi?
Bruchim Abayim, welcome, bienvenidos. I had prepared some words to share with you before traveling to Argentina, but what I experienced exactly a week ago changed completely what I was prepared to share with you. So allow me to speak from my heart. July 18th, 2024, exactly 10 years after having left my hometown, the city of Buenos Aires. I was there for the first time with my children to attend the memorial event commemorating the attack of the AMIA. My middle son is exactly the age that I was when I attended such an event for the first time. My parents took me in 1995, July 18, to Pasteur Street to give honor to the victims of the AMIA and to demand for justice. I must confess, I don't think anyone who was at that event ever thought that 30 years later, we would still be demanding justice. My son had some questions. For example, how could it be that after the bombing of the Israeli embassy, no one was prepared for this? To which I responded, you know, when it comes to anti-Semitism, there is a tendency for denial. That it only happened once, that it cannot happen again. And I told him, you know what? We looked away. Yes, we strengthened our security protocols, we took care of some things here and there, but we never thought it was going to happen again in Argentina. You know, we Argentinian Jews don't believe that Argentina is a place of anti-Semitism and hatred. But then I moved to the US, and the question that every single American Jew would ask me was like, how's the situation there with anti-Semitism? It's bad, isn't it? And here's what happened last week. I was standing in Pasteur Street, July 18th, 2024, at 9:53 a.m., and I bumped into an old friend whom I have known since those days. And he asked me, how's the situation with anti-Semitism in the US? It's bad, isn't it? How could I explain my son that we moved here in search of a safer place to live as Jews when he is witnessing what he is witnessing? My wife is not here with us tonight because she is attending a conference in Washington, D.C. Last night, for the first time in 7 years since we have lived in the U.S., she told me, I'm scared. What I saw today, alluding to yesterday, in front of the Capitol is very scary. I grew up with anti-Semitism. I've been cursed with words that I cannot reproduce from this bima while walking with a kippah in the streets of Buenos Aires or attending colleges. I have studied with Jewish hater university professors down there, and I thought I was running away from that once and forever. Some people believe that we should not mix everything. But how can we not mix when everything is the same? Last week we were reading Parashat Balak, how someone who hates the Jews hires the services of proxies to curse and damage the Jewish people. In the same way that Bilam was representing Balak, Hezbollah was representing Iran when the AMIA was bombed, and Hamas was representing Iran when Israel was attacked on October 7th. It's not that we are mixing things up. It's that there's one power, one source of evil behind everything. And our commitment and our determination is to fight it. Because we are here to stay, here in the US, here in Israel, here everywhere. The Jewish people have survived worse enemies than the one that we are fighting now. But we must look up. We cannot live in denial. We cannot lie to ourselves and believe that anti-Semitism is the exclusive monopoly of one party or the other. We looked away when someone from one side of the spectrum called us the Benjamins, and we looked away when people justify people wearing shirts saying Camp Auschwitz who stormed the Capitol. Anti-Semitism is a cancer that has permeated all layers of Western culture. If we are going to make anti-Semitism the exclusive monopoly of one side or the other, we're going to fail. Let's make sure our political divisions don't separate us while we fight against anti-Semitism. The Jewish people must stay united. We must fight anti-Semitism when it comes from the right and when it comes from the left. I grew up as a camp counselor in Argentina, and it was a requirement for being a madrich for being a camp counselor, to learn Krav Maga. I was 20 years old when I took on my first job as a teacher, and one of the things that they trained me to do was how to answer calls when someone is threatening to blow up the school where you're teaching. That's the usual in Latin America. You're 2 years old, 3 years old, and you have not an active shooter drill. You have a bombing attack drill at every single Jewish day school. And allow me to say, here, 2024, United States of America, I feel I come from the future. We must look up, because what happened there can happen here. We never thought that Pittsburgh was going to happen. We never thought that Poway was going to happen. We never thought that a rabbi and his congregants can be held hostages at the synagogue in Texas. And yet, it happened. And it will happen again if we don't wake up. I want to urge everyone not only to see this event as a moment of remembering and commemorating. This event must also be our wake-up call. The same people who bombed the AMIA building 30 years ago are walking freely in the streets of the world, are being welcomed in Bolivia or in Brazil, are doing business with Venezuela. We must look up, we must fight, so that today and every day we're able to say, Am Israel Chai B'Kayam. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdov. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justicia, justicia perseguirás.
Thank you, Rabbi Cohen. We have received congressional letters from both Senator Marco Rubio and Senator Rick Scott. Allow me now to read them. Pleased to join the Latin American Task Force of the Argentine-Israeli Mutual Association Jewish Community Center in Argentina. We to honor the many Jewish lives lost 30 years ago in Argentina, home of the largest Jewish Latin American community. This summer anniversary by those who inflict harm. May we all during the October attacks and now fighting to defend Israel. I know each of you. Our nation's commitment to Israel and the Jewish people must never be in doubt, and we must continue to supply Israel with the resources and support needed in their fight to completely destroy Hamas. On behalf of the people of Florida, please accept my best wishes to each family who lost loved ones in Argentina. I am confident the Latin American Task Force community across South Florida. Sincerely, Marco Rubio. Dear fellow Floridians, it is my honor to thank the Latin American Task Force for recognizing and paying tribute to the 30th anniversary of the AMIA Jewish Community Center bombing in Argentina. Thank you for your commitment to commemorating the resiliency of the Jewish people in the face of such a tragic event. Today and every day, I vow to stand against all forms of hatred and injustice. I will always stand with Israel and the Jewish community, and I thank you for your commitment to uniting people to do the same. The United States and Israel are partners in every sense of the word, and we have come together over decades to defend our common interest, protect peace, and guarantee security. I am honored to have visited Israel on 6 occasions during my time as governor and U.S. Senator, and I have championed important policies and investments to continue to support Florida's Jewish community. With Israel under attack and Americans still being held hostage by Iran-backed Hamas terrorists, all Floridians must stand united and stronger than ever in our support of Israel and the Jewish people. I will never stop fighting to protect and support our great ally, Israel, and the Jewish families in Florida and across the nation. Thank you again for your work to bring people together for their fight against anti-Semitism. Sincerely, Rick Scott, United States Senator. We thank both senators for their advocacy and continued support. I would now like to invite Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava to say a few words.
Good evening, buenas noches. Here we are again, 30 years together, 30 years later, 30 years still waiting for answers. I'm very honored to be able to join you yet again on this night of reflection and remembrance. And it's really hard to believe that it's been 30 years. I'm proud to be your first Jewish mayor in Miami-Dade County. Jewish woman mayor, and joined by my dear friend, former Senator Nan Rich, now mayor, Jewish woman mayor of Broward County. I don't know what is it, Nan, but somehow or other here we find ourselves. As a child, I grew up partially in Latin America, and I have many family members still in Argentina. And so I feel a personal connection to what happened there that day. And of course, all around the world, we feel connection, Jews and non-Jews alike, for this terrible tragedy. And that 85 precious lives were lost through an act of cowardice and terrorism means that we must continue and renew our efforts to end violence and hate. So this is a painful collective memory for all of us. And in a world that is increasingly marked by anti-Semitism and continued violence in Israel, across the Middle East, and elsewhere in the world, we know we have a shared mission to eradicate violence and hate wherever we find it. So I'm deeply grateful to AJC of Miami and Broward for hosting this memorial service every year and bringing us together. And I'd also like to thank the AJC Belfer Institute for Latino and Latin American Affairs, the AJC Latin American Task Force, the Beth Torah Beni Rock Campus, and the Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center for opening this space, your time, your resources, and your love. And let us not forget the 40+ South Florida Jewish organizations and institutions who year after year come together to honor the lives of the AMIA victims. And we are stronger together because of that love and support that bind us. So after 30 years of one of the worst anti-Semitic acts in world history, we will continue to stand with the families whose lives were lost and those whose lives were lost and their families, and also the families whose loved ones were injured, 300 injured in that event. It is a wake-up call, as Rabbi Cohen says, but I also want to say that here in South Florida, we enjoy a very, very special and unique bond. We are different from so many places in the world and in this country. We enjoy great, great support from our community across religion, nationality, race, all boundaries. And standing here today as your first Jewish mayor is just one example of the progress that we have made to overcome hate and division, and so we must continue. I visited AMIA a couple of years ago. I visited the site with my family, and I was joined there by leaders, Jewish and non-Jewish leaders alike, religious community, from the elected officials. They were all very curious about our solidarity here in South Florida, and they recognized our strength, and they understood that we have a great center here in South Florida for Jewish life and culture, and they see us as a place that they want to emulate. So I want to say, with that promising thought and what we all experience, that I know there are brighter and better days ahead. We have always in South Florida celebrated our diversity, celebrated our inclusion. We've welcomed all people. We've been a safe harbor for people from all around the world, and we must continue to live up to that heritage and not let evil win. So we must wake up. Fear is real, but we cannot let it consume us. We must embrace each other and continue optimistic that we can overcome this division and intolerance, thanks to the great efforts of so many leaders, all of you here. We are deeply committed to building a kinder community, county, country and world, so that it will never happen again. Tonight, we raise our voices for justice, and we stand firm in our commitment. And I believe that on top of it, I have a proclamation. Right, just to seal the deal. So we want to make it official. On behalf of Miami-Dade County, our nearly 3 million residents, the chairman of our Board of County Commissioners, Oliver Gilbert III, and myself as your mayor, we want to acknowledge past history and future hopes with the 30th anniversary of the bombing of Asociación Mutual Israelita Argentina Day.
We're lucky tonight to have also with us Mayor of Broward County, my friend, Senator Rich. And please, I'm taking my papers with me.
I promise I won't steal them. Thank you, my dear friend Jennifer Ensline. We have known each other for quite a while, and I just want to thank you for everything that you do, this community. Every year, she does this along with the Latin American Task Force, so I think we have to give her a real round of applause. So it is my honor and a privilege, and my privilege to be here tonight to represent Broward County as the mayor of Broward County. However, I am not the first Jewish mayor of Broward County. I want everybody to know that. We're very progressive. We have had Eileen Lieberman and Sue Gunsberger, and I don't know, Joy, maybe somebody else that I'm missing, but anyway. Okay, that's it. But it is a pleasure to be here. I've tried to come each and every year because of how important this is. And especially as we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the AMIA Jewish Community Center bombing in Argentina. This terrorist tragic event, which claimed the lives, as you've heard already, of 85 people and injured over 300, remains in our collective memory as an example of the destructive power of hate. Today, we remember those we lost in this senseless violence and honor the resilience of the survivors and the community that continues to rebuild and to seek justice. The AMIA bombing was not just an attack on a building, it was an assault on the very essence of the Jewish community. As we reflect on this atrocity, we must also acknowledge the persistent and pervasive threat of anti-Semitism that continues in our world today, which you've already heard a little about. In Broward County, we are proud to be home to one of the largest Jewish populations in the United States. Our Jewish community enriches our county with its diverse heritage, traditions, and contributions. However, we are not immune from the scourge of anti-Semitism. The heinous attacks on October 7th in Israel remind us that the fight against anti-Semitism is far from over. Hamas terrorists unleashed a wave of violence that resulted in the deaths of over 1,200 Israelis, including innocent women, children, families. Subsequently, anti-Semitic attacks have only continued to increase around the world. The statistics are alarming. In Broward County, we are committed to combating anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred ensuring that the safety and dignity of our Jewish residents is there. This year, I'm glad that we have David Harris here. He may not remember, we go back, I was involved and was national president of National Council of Jewish Women and did a lot of work up in Washington and New York many years ago before I got involved in politics. This year, Broward established a special relationship with one of tonight's co-sponsors, the American Jewish Committee. AJC received a grant from Broward County to implement the White House strategy to combat anti-Semitism. We are serving in Broward County as a model for other counties in mobilizing toward awareness and prevention of anti-Semitism and a full implementation of the national strategy to counter anti-Semitism. This year-long initiative, spearheaded by AJC in conjunction with the county, includes education programs at our 27 public libraries, anti-Semitism trainings for the corporate community, for nonprofits, parent workshops that are just beginning with schools, and law enforcement agencies, to name a few. The public awareness campaign includes billboards, radio, social media, and print ads. On May 20th, we had an incredible summit. It was called Combating Anti-Semitism, organized by AJC, took place at the Posnack JCC, who is listed on this program tonight. Over 400 people attended, representing the tremendous diversity of Broward County. Help combat anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred and bigotry. And we still have 4 months to go in our programming, so we have much more to accomplish with them. We are determined to create an environment where hate has no place and every resident can feel safe and respected. Tonight we are joined, as I saw in the program, by many representatives of Jewish organizations who work to combat anti-Semitism and provide essential community and social services. Your dedication and efforts are invaluable in the fight against hate and intolerance. Your work ensures that communities remain strong, vibrant, and inclusive. Your advocacy shows your commitment to help people of all colors, creed, religions, and ethnicities. The AMIA bombing and the October 7th attacks are stark reminders of the enduring presence of anti-Semitism. They underscore the importance of our collective efforts to combat this hatred. Thank you to all of you for remaining vigilant, proactive, and united in your resolve to eradicate anti-Semitism and promote a culture of tolerance and respect. While we remember those who we have lost to senseless violence and honor the survivors, we must also recommit ourselves to the fight against anti-Semitism. Together, we can build a world where justice and dignity prevail.
Mama, Mom. It is the name, the title of a video that we will watch next. It was created in 2019 for the 25th anniversary of the AMIA bombing, but it is still applicable today, 5 years later. It is narrated by a then 25-year-old woman who was only 8 months old when her mother was killed at the AMIA attack. She has now lived without her mother for 30 years. The content of the video is a testament of how the lives of the victims, families are affected and have been impacted by the attack. Video, please.
Me dicen que para tener futuro hay que dejar tranquilo al pasado. Soltar. Me dicen que hay que soltar. Porque recordar todo el tiempo tira para abajo, hunde. Parece que la memoria fuese sinónimo de tristeza. Y la tristeza no está de moda. Pero la verdad es que lo único triste es que te olviden. En mi caso, recordar es buscar en el corazón y hacerlo más grande con el recuerdo de los que faltan y que viven en nosotros cuando los evocamos. Busco en el corazón también con alegría, porque me permite saber de dónde vengo y quién soy. Tengo 25 años y vivo cada día con una ausencia irreparable. Una ausencia que se hace presente, que me acompaña, que me toma el alma pero que no me paraliza y me empuja hacia adelante. Una ausencia que tiene mi misma edad. Mi mamá no se murió. A mi mamá la mataron. La mataron como otras 84 personas en el atentado a la AMIA, hace 25 años, cuando yo tenía 8 meses. Obligada, aprendí a vivir sin mi mamá. No quiero resignarme a vivir sin justicia. No quiero que a nadie le suceda lo mismo. Y no nos equivoquemos. El olvido no te sana ni te garantiza el futuro. El olvido es la ignorancia de la identidad. El futuro que le robaron a mi mamá forma parte de mi pasado y de la historia de todos. Tenemos que honrar la memoria de los que ya no están, defendiendo la vida y reclamando justicia. Me dicen que compartí muy poco tiempo con mi mamá, y sin dejar de ser verdad, yo me río, porque no pueden entender que ella estuvo en cada momento importante de mi vida, y lo estará siempre, porque su ausencia me constituye con una presencia hermosa, y recordarla es un privilegio. Recordar me fortalece, y me permite soñar con un mundo mejor, y pelear por ese mundo mejor. No puedo acostumbrarme a vivir con impunidad, porque la impunidad es la repetición permanente de un asesinato. Me gusta pensar que de la misma forma que quien salva una vida salva el universo entero, quien busca justicia también repara el mundo. Sueño cada día con ella, recreando su imagen a partir de las fotos que compartimos. La pienso en cada momento. La extraño hace 25 años. Quiero multiplicar la memoria y expandir el reclamo por cada hecho impune en nuestro país. Se lo debemos a todos los que ya no están. Se lo debemos desde hace 25 años y no podemos esperar más. El tiempo es ahora.
Wow. To follow the video and to honor the 85 victims of the AMIA attack, 85 candles will be lit while seeing the faces and hearing the names of each of the victims. As part of this event's tradition, after each name is mentioned, we say presente, which means present. I would like you all to join us in this tradition tonight. I call on Tania Rosenblatt and Deborah Hamuy, members of the Latin America Task Force, and Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center outgoing President Fernando Levy Jara and Ariana Rosenthal, members of Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, to read the victims' names out loud. I invite Natalie Kupchik and her mother, Marcela Hellman, who are the daughter and wife of Luis Fernando Kupchik, one of the 85 victims, together with the designated representatives of tonight's sponsors, members of the Consular Corps, elected officials, and/or their representatives, to please come on stage to light the candles.
Jorge Antúnez, presente.
Mónica Nudel.
Ileana Merkovich.
Carlos Avedaño Bobadilla.
Fabián Chalit, presente.
Silvia Inés Portnoy.
Félix Roberto Roisman.
Guillermo Benigno Galarraga.
León Gregorio Knorpel.
Olegario Ramírez. Presente.
Diego de Pirro.
Ingrid Finkelstein.
Andrea Judith Guterman.
Pavel Guillermin.
Fabián Marcelo Furman.
Néstor Américo Serena.
Agustín Diego Leu.
Mónica Feldman de Goldfeld.
Cristian Adrián de Priar.
Leonor Gitman de Finkelstein.
Andrés Gustavo Malamud.
Erwin García Tenorio.
Rita Borona.
Norberto Ariel Dubín.
Liliana Edith Weimer.
José Enrique Ginsburg Cookie. Presente.
Paola Sara Zisevsky.
Elena Sofía Caspica.
Marta Treibman.
Silvia Leonor Gersalis. Presente.
Pablo Chalit.
Fabio Enrique Bermúdez.
Noemí Graciela Reisfeld.
Patricio Irala.
Marisa Raquel Said.
Analía Verónica Hosch.
Julia Susana Wolinski de Kreiman.
María Luisa Jaworski. Presente.
Gregorio Merman.
Romina Ámbar Luján Boland.
Cintia Verónica Goldenberg.
Danilo Villaverde.
Elías Alberto Palti.
Abraham Jaime Plaxkin.
Janina Aberbuch.
Carla Andrea Yosh.
Naón Bernardo Mirochnik.
Mirta Strier.
Sebastián Barreiro.
Mar Salazar Mendoza.
Ricardo Hugo Said.
Martín Figueroa.
Moisés Gabriel Arasi.
Mauricio Schieber.
Silvana Alguea de Rodríguez.
Rebeca Violeta Béjar de Jurín.
Emiliano Gastón Brickman.
Naún Javier Tenenbaum.
Emilia Jakubiek de Leutzuk.
Esther Klein,
Viviana Adela Casabé,
Emilia Graciela Barelejis de Toer,
Hugo Norberto Basilio,
Carlos Gilú,
Jacobo Chemanuel de Ictiar,
Mariela Toer,
Javier Tenenbaum,
Rosa Perelmutter,
Ramón Norberto Díaz,
Enio Vela Ramos,
Alberto Fernández,
Berta Kosuk de Loche,
Isabel Victoria Núñez de Velázquez,
Juan Vela Ramos,
David Barriga,
Claudio Upfal,
Luis Fernando Kupchik,
Gustavo Daniel Velázquez, presente.
Juan Carlos Terranova,
Dora Belgorodsky,
Jesús María Lourdes,
Ademar Zarate Loaiza,
David Barriga,
Gabriel Butini,
Thank you all. You may see. I now would like to invite our guest, Marcelo Gilardoni, Consul General of Argentina.
Hi, good evening, shalom, buenas noches. I think it was very moving for me, it's hard to speak after this very special moment, Listening to the names of the people that passed in this awful attack is really, it hit me really very deep inside me. So I want to say thank you to the AJC, to the Turnberry Jewish Community Center, to Rabbi Cohen, to the AJC Latino and Latin American Affairs Department, to the Aventura Jewish Center. I want to say thank you also for all you being present tonight. This was an awful attack that happened already 30 years ago in my city, in my country, to our people, So I'm not very much into speaking. I'm not very much into reading speeches, but I will tonight. This terrorist attack committed against the AMIA headquarters in Buenos Aires 30 years ago on July 18th, 1994, is an open wound to my society, to the entire Argentine society. As you might have listened tonight, and we read the names of the people that passed, and we light a candle for every victim. There were 85 people that passed. They were not only Jews, but Argentines. We were really hit by this tremendous attack. It hit democracy, it hit freedom, and it hit Argentine society as a whole. Argentina condemns terrorism in all its forms and has taken concrete measures to fight all types of discrimination and racism, including anti-Semitism, understood as one of the oldest forms of discrimination that unfortunately persists to this day. Argentina is home of, as everybody knows, Argentina is home of one of the largest Jewish communities outside Israel, and is one of the largest, if not the largest, in Latin America. It is a community that is integrated into all areas of Argentine social and political life, and actively works not only against anti-Semitism, but also in joining forces with state organizations to fight against all types of discrimination and racism that affects Argentina's society. The fight against violence and discrimination is part of a broader framework of policies for the promotion and protection of human rights that has been state policy in our country since the return of democracy in 1983, and is a framework. The fight against anti-Semitism is also part of the mass atrocity prevention agenda. At a global level, Argentina plays an active role in various initiatives against anti-Semitism in the main multilateral fora, but by supporting joint declaration or specific draft resolutions. Argentina is, up to the date, the only American country that is a full member of the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is the only international organization that deals with the promotion of education, research, and memory of the Holocaust, and we are committed to continue giving greater visibility to the Alliance agenda in the region. In 2020, by virtue of Resolution 114 of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Argentina, my country adopted the working definition of the IHRI anti-Semitism, which has become an important instrument to identify when a behavior or expression of anti-Semitic complements the national law against discriminatory acts. To date, there are more than 80 national public and private institutions that have adhered to this definition. Since mid-2023, Argentina has a special representative for the fight against anti-Semitism. Sorry, I'm kind of moved, sorry about that. Demonstrating continuity in policies against discrimination and racism. With this appointment that happened in my Ministry of Foreign Affairs a few months ago, Argentina joins effort with those of other Western countries that are paying special attention to the increase in anti-Semitism at a global level, and is committed to working to reduce the impact of these manifestations that can endanger democratic values. Allow me to finish this speech or these brief words by stating that 30 years after the terrorist attack of the AMIA, we renew our commitment, we Argentinians renew our commitment to the search for justice, and we hope that these types of atrocities will not be committed again anywhere in the world. Mechakim Lachaim Babayit, Am Israel Chai.
Wow, wow, wow. Only 4 months and he already gets it. Please welcome him into our community. The Consul General has only been in town for 4 months now. Thank you, Consul General. I would like now to invite Mike Dricus, Deputy Consul of Israel to Florida, to share his message on behalf of the State of Israel. Mike?
Shalom, buenas noches. Monday, July 18th, 1994, 9:53 a.m., Buenos Aires. Tuesday, September 11, 2001, 8:14 a.m., New York. Shabbat Simchat Torah, October 7th, 2023, 6:29 a.m., all over Israel. They all started as shiny, beautiful mornings, peaceful mornings with innocent people who just had their coffee or were just about to, without knowing their lives would come to an end a few minutes later. Because monsters decided that they would murder them for the sake of the sick and radical ideology. Monsters from Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, monsters from Hamas. 3 names in a despicable and non-ending list of Islamic terror organizations, 3 names that definitely rank high in their insane Hall of Fame. In a way, our greatest ally, the United States of America, pretty much achieved justice with bin Laden and the horrors of the deadly attacks in New York City. But in the 2 other cases, well, the wound is still open. Wide open, 30 years for the AMIA bombing, and almost 10 months since the barbaric attack of these inhuman savages. And in both cases, it's like salt is added in this open wound every single day. But to begin with, I came to assure you today of one thing. We will achieve justice, and we will win. Because Iran, the deadliest exporter of terrorism in the world, linking Hezbollah in Argentina and on our northern border, the Houthis in Yemen, the deadly militias in Syria and Iraq, and of course Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Israel, Iran, with its Ayatollah regime, cannot win. They cannot win because this is not a battle between them and Israel. This is not even a clash of civilization, as our Prime Minister said clearly yesterday. This is a battle between civilization and barbarism. This is also the battle between light and darkness, between life and death, between good and evil. But this evil is nothing new. Immediately after the worst atrocities committed in the history of mankind, from the ashes of Auschwitz and Treblinka, our brave grandfathers and grandmothers came to Eretz Israel and built one of the most successful countries in history. Never playing the victims, they hid their sorrow and their pain, and they fought like lions, outnumbered, but with the strongest Jewish spirit against new monsters to revive the eternal Zionist dream. But then something happened. During the 2,000 years following the destruction of the Second Temple, the world has known only the weak, persecuted Jews, the ones who thrived everywhere for a while, but then were blamed for whatever accusation, being powerful, being powerless, dealing with money, controlling the media, baking matzah with children's blood. Every stupid fairy tale was music to the anti-Semite ears. The oldest social disease, this cancer, in the world surfaced again and again and again. Why? Because the world cannot cope with the fighting Jew, with the warrior, with the reincarnations of the Maccabees. Before the Shoah, we were blamed for not being white enough to belong to the Aryan race. And what's happening today? We are the new white colonialist oppressors. The ugly face of anti-Semitism has surged again in the most blatant way. Jews cannot feel safe anywhere, including in this great country. Yesterday, we saw ignorant thugs, Iran's useful idiots, as our Prime Minister called them in his outstanding speech in the Congress. We saw this mob burning the American flag and destroying the American symbols of freedom in Capitol Hill, the capital of all democracies. In the most prestigious universities, Jewish students cannot enter the classrooms, synagogues are being burned, graffitis of swastikas are drawn everywhere, gas the Jews and final solutions on road signs. Jews are being attacked while going to pray in temples or to study in schools. For these who still don't understand, no, there is absolutely no context here. No context in Harvard, neither in Penn, nor Columbia and MIT. This is pure hatred, pure evil. And the best way to let evil win is to do nothing to crush it. On October 7th in Israel, exactly on July 18 in Argentina, and September 11 in the US, the entire world discovered that the state of Israel, what the state of Israel has screamed for decades, that the Nazi monsters have not died, they have just replaced the black and white horror pictures with new, vivid GoPro videos and social media live streams. On this dark day, more than 1,200 brothers and sisters have joined in heaven the 85 who perished beneath the rumbles of the AMIA building. 292 days after this dark Shabbat, these monsters are still playing with our hearts, the same hearts that are bleeding for any sign of life for the remaining 115 hostages taken by these savages. We will not stop. We will not stop until each and every one of them will come back home. It's not only a promise, it's also our Jewish moral duty. And even if we are living the worst days since the Shoah, today the situation is different. We are not defenseless anymore. The state of Israel is behind each and every one of you. The nation of Israel may be hurt, but I have a strong message to all our enemies. Make no mistake. Don't take our sense of humanity as a weakness. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, and the anti-Semites on the campuses will have the same destiny as the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, the Assyrians, and the Nazis. A history of 300 and 500 years has shown it very clearly. When you start with the Jews, this is usually the start of your inevitable end. We will fight, and together, Be'ezrat Hashem, God's willing, we will win. The Hezbollah of 2024 is a bigger threat than its 1994 version, but we are used to being outnumbered. We have this secret weapon of our unity, the unity that makes Hashem, our God, proud of being our Father. To our allies, I will say, keep supporting us, keep being on the right side of history, because the other side is death, destruction, and darkness. Let our brave soldiers, our Maccabees, do what is right for the future of the entire world, because the monsters are there, but believe me, they are also here, knocking at our doors, right now. Speaking of allies, it's a great opportunity to thank President Milei, who from day one declared clearly of which side of history he wants to be. Because let me be clear on this, my friends, there are no two sides here. Either you are with us, or you are a part of the problem. A big thank you also to the leaders of communities of the Sunshine State and all of our allies in this great country, Jews and non-Jews alike. I started my diplomatic career with a visit in Buenos Aires to commemorate the AMIA bombing, and it's very symbolic that I'm here with you tonight. In 1 week, God's willing, exactly at this hour, I will be with my family on a plane halfway between the great city of Miami and the holy capital of Israel, our eternal and undivided Jerusalem. On August 1st, I will be concluding my diplomatic mission after 3 challenging years in Miami and a total of 6 years outside of Israel. I proudly defended and fiercely promoted our beloved country every second during those 6 years. My formal mission as an official representative may be over, but dear friends, my Jewish battle is far from being over, and so is yours. We don't have the privilege to give up. So my dear friends, this is the message I want to convey tonight. I urge you to speak up, to scream, to fight. Fight for democracy, for freedom, for our shared values. Our fight is your fight. Our front line is your front line. Our freedom is your freedom. Keep your heads up proudly. You are the descendants of a nation of giants. You lie on their shoulders. You are fed by the legacy of our fathers, our prophets, our kings, and our fighters. And it's now our responsibility to take the lead for our children, for a better future. Never again are not empty words. Let's make the sacrifice of our ancestors count. Let's honor the courage of our soldiers. Let's show the world that nobody should ever think of targeting us. ארדוף אויביי ואשיגם ולא אשוב עד כלותם. I will pursue my enemies and I will overtake them, and I will not return until they are gone. Never again is now. Justicia. Am Israel Chai.
Yes, stand up, stand up. Let's thank him for the 3 years of service to us and to the community in Israel. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much. Toda rabah. Merci beaucoup. Tough to follow that one now. מה נשתנה הלילה הזה מכל הלילות? Why is this evening different from all others? 30 years after the AMIA bombing and 9 months after the massacre of October 7th, now the worst terrorist attack after the end of World War II, our entire world changed. The ugliest face of anti-Semitism resurged and has become our daily nightmare. The unexpected, the unthinkable. It has become the new normal. Representing all the victims of the October 7th massacre, I now invite Chen Shabi, an Israeli citizen who moved to South Florida with her husband and 4 children 10 months ago. Chen's brother, Lotan Abir, was a 24-year-old American-Israeli living in Utah who was killed in the Hamas terrorist massacre at the Supernova Music Festival. Chen, please come to light a special candle in memory of Lotan and every other victim of the October 7th massacre. You would like to say a few words?
Be here today, 30 years after terror attack in Argentina. 30 years later, we experience again in Israel, October 7th. And now, more than ever, to be united and remember that even if we're not religious, even we not keeping mitzvot, or we all Jewish, we all need to be together. And all the victims, not just from October 7th, all the terror victims, all the people that murdered just because they're Jewish, they've been taken from us, but their light is in our heart, and we need to remember that we must keep in being together and love, and we show the world that the Jewish people, it's all about love and united, and to see each other and to pray for each other more than we pray for us. And this is the moment that we bring the peace inside of us. I'm sure the good days will come, Mashiach come, Bezrat Hashem, and we all be together. And never again, never again.
Toda. In order to discuss the new reality we're living after 30 years of no justice for the AMIA attack, this evening we're very fortunate to have with us David Harris. David is a lifelong Jewish activist with 50 years of frontline global Jewish advocacy. He led the American Jewish Committee for 3 decades and has been described by the New York Times as the Dean of American Jewish Organizations and as the, quote, foreign minister of the Jewish people, end quote, by the late Shimon Peres. David has traveled to Argentina many times to demand justice for AMIA. He has met with survivors of the attack and with relatives of the bombing's victims, and has carried their message around the world, fighting for the need to investigate and prosecute the people responsible. David's work for the AMIA case is unparalleled, and his personal commitment to it is a paragon. David is currently the host of the weekly show Defending Israel on JBS, Jewish Broadcasting Service, and the executive vice chair of ISGAP, Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. Please join me in welcoming David Harris.
Jennifer is a force of nature, isn't she? Thank you, Latin American Task Force. Thank you, Rabbi Cohen, and this beautiful energetic center. There are many friends in the audience. Thank you to the diplomats and elected officials who've come. Nan, nice to see you again, even under these difficult circumstances. You know, I was sitting here in the first row, absorbing everything, but staring quite a bit at these two flags, which perhaps some of us have for too long taken for granted as furniture, if you will, as an adornment. Yesterday, before the eyes of the nation, people in this country took that flag, they spit on it, they desecrated it, and they burned it. And the fate of the Israeli flag in too many capitals, not just in the Middle East, but in the West, the same. The question for me this evening is what happens tomorrow morning? Does this become a ritualistic exercise where every July we come together, whether in Aventura or elsewhere, with sad faces, tear-filled eyes, memories, and then go on? Or is there something about this evening, about the occasion, about the zeitgeist, about the world in which we're living today, that will cause us to do something different tomorrow than we did yesterday? And I would say that if the answer is yes, then this has been a successful evening. But if the answer is no, then for all of the emotion and drama of the evening, I submit it will have been for naught. So the question becomes, what do we do tomorrow? Well, for me, there are 5 things that we need to be doing every day, energetically, and 1 minute longer than our enemies. Number 1, as Jennifer said, I've been intimately entwined with this AMIA story from the very beginning for a whole host of reasons, which I shared 5 years ago when I came to this event, and which some of you know and I won't rehearse, but I will say that my son Michael, in 2004, 10 years after the tragedy, lived with the Kupchik family in Buenos Aires for 6 months with the parents of Luis. Luis, who at the age of 42, perished on that day together with his cousins and his friends when they went to the AMIA in a tragic irony to register the death of the grandfather. And instead, their deaths were now registered. And all on the 10th birthday of Natalie's sister, July 18th. Natalie is here, the son of Luis, the daughter of Luis. The wife of Luis is here. It's because I know that for them, there are 2 injustices. The first, that their father and their husband were taken away from them too early. And the second, because in a tragic comedy of errors, Argentina has failed us from 1994. And let's say it clearly. They have made promises and pledges time and again with enormous sincerity in their eyes. I met with Judge Galliano. I met with every president of Argentina. I had to be lectured by Hector Timerman, the foreign minister, after he signed an absurd memorandum of understanding with Iran to create a truth commission, if you can imagine, to seek justice in the AMIA bombing. Hector, I said, that would be like asking us to work with Nazi Germany to establish the truth of Kristallnacht. But now, there's a ray of hope. And yes, many of us are hardened and cynical and skeptical after 30 years, and we have a right to be. But we have a president of Argentina who's authentic in his commitment to the Jewish people, in his respect for Judaism, in his love of Israel. And how do we know it? Because it's not just palabre, 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 which politicians are so skilled at delivering on the right occasion, because he's living it. And I'm not here to take political sides, talk about taxation or other policies in Argentina, but we have someone we can work with, and work with him we shall and we must. And we cannot let an investigation, even after 30 years, disappear. And as a friend of Alberto Nisman, I want to know, how did he die? Was he killed? By whom? For what reasons? I don't want idle speculation and social media gossip. We deserve to know the fate of Alberto Nisman. And many of us know that on the eve of his death, he said, uncovered some damning evidence which he was about to present. We want to know the facts. So that's our first, it seems to me, objective. Our second objective is that in 2013, the European Union, quite reluctantly, after a Hezbollah terrorist attack in Burgas, Bulgaria, on a tourist bus carrying Israelis, killed 5 Israelis and the driver, the Bulgarian driver of the bus. The Bulgarians, to their great credit, investigated, and many tried to discourage their investigation. But it pointed to Hezbollah. And Prime Minister Boyko Borisov and his team were undaunted by those who said, shh, shh, we don't need this in Europe today. And a year later, following the Bulgarian investigation and a parallel Cypriot investigation, when they found Hezbollah operatives casing Israeli tourists in Cyprus, Europe came up with a, forgive me, half-hearted, quite ridiculous solution. They bifurcated Hezbollah, creating a political wing and a military wing, and they announced with great courage that they were listing the military wing. You know who laughed at them? Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leadership. Are you kidding me? We're one solitary, unified Hezbollah. You're trying to divide us? Pretending we're two? Europe needs to finish the job. Europe needs to show courage and spine and backbone. Europe needs to say, as the United States has said, as Canada and Britain have said, and others, one Hezbollah, one terrorist organization, and no more nonsense. You have consulates in Miami, lots of them, most of the European countries. They need to hear from you. In whatever configuration, they need to hear from you. Finish the job. The third is Iran, which the Deputy Consul General of Israel in particular spoke about so powerfully. The head of the snake is Iran. I know snakes don't have tentacles, so I'm mixing animal images. But nonetheless, without Iran, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and so many others operating not only in the Middle East, but in Central Asia, and in Europe, and in North America, and in Latin America would be severely weakened. But there seems to be a reluctance to deal directly with Iran. We were told, for example, by a previous administration, there are only two choices: a deal in 2015 or war. In fact, there were three choices, but they didn't want you to know that. The third choice was to make clear to Iran the consequences of their continued support for terrorism and pursuit of weapons of mass destruction, and it didn't require war. In 2003, after Iran saw how American forces vanquished Saddam Hussein, they froze in place. Iran, unfortunately, only understands one language. Whether it's Farsi or any other language, it's the same. Strength, determination, conviction, and credibility. It's not enough. It's not enough for political leaders to speak. Political leaders need to convince Iran that we're serious and we will do whatever is necessary. And we're not going to leave Israel alone. In 1981, Israel was left alone to deal in Iraq, built, by the way, with the help of Jacques Chirac and the French government. Yes. And in 2007, Israel brought soil samples from Syria to the White House to demonstrate the radioactivity of those soil samples in a plutonium factory being built with the help of North Korea. And the then president said to the Israeli leadership, "We're too busy in Iraq and Afghanistan." And once again, it was left to Israel and Israel alone to deal with it. Will that be the fate of Iran as well? Even as Iran has said clearly time and again, Israel is only the appetizer for our multi-course meal. And the fourth issue on our agenda must be surging anti-Semitism. And I don't just mean that we schrei Gewalt. Schreien Gewalt does not change a thing. It's an outrage that in this country in which we have lived since 1654, that in the year 2024, yet again, according to the FBI hate crime statistics, well over 50% of all religiously motivated hate crimes are directed at 2% of the population, us. What's our answer? I believe our answer, first and foremost, and I did not rehearse this with Rabbi Cohen, is we must become more Jewish. Be more Jewish. Act more Jewish. Do more Jewish. Never again will we become Marrano Jews. Never again will we close the curtains. If the mezuzah is not there, put it there. If there's no chai here, put it there. If there's an Israeli flag, fly it proudly. And if you speak Hebrew, don't whisper. Secondly, Jewish organizations need to throw out the October 6th playbook. It's no longer relevant. The October 6th playbook was based on reason. If only we can get into the office of the president of Harvard or Penn or Columbia, we can reason with them that anti-Semitism is bad and evil, and we can work together and share our experiences. Well, that didn't get us very far post-October 7th. What got us a lot further were universities that understood financial consequences, reputational consequences, legal consequences, by students, by alumni, by trustees, by donors, and by the way, not all Jewish. People like John Huntsman telling Penn, forget my money. God bless the non-Jews who stood with us because they've understood this is not just about the Jews. And that's my third response to anti-Semitism. You know, if we simply go around saying with buttons, anti-Semitism is evil, we'll get some responses from other Jews, I'm sure. But what about if liberal democracy is on the line? What about if the real threat of which anti-Semitism is only the glimmer, the real threat is to liberal democracy and liberal democratic values as we know them. And we saw it yesterday again near Union Station. F America. Hamas is coming. Not my words, their words. America, wake up. I will not use the analogy of the canary in the coal mine. I know traditionally many do. I'm damned if I'm going to play the role for another 2,000 years of dying so the miner can live, alerted to the methane gas. Enough! And finally, Israel. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is here. Thank goodness the plane finally arrived. Timing is perfect. We saw two things yesterday, and they don't necessarily align, but both can be true at the same time. We saw a powerful welcome and response to the Prime Minister of Israel. And by the way, it's not that he doesn't have a name. He obviously does, and we all know his name, Benjamin Netanyahu. But what was important was that he came as the Prime Minister of Israel to speak for the fourth time in that legendary chamber, and he got 50 standing ovations. Not bad. But there were people who chose not to be there. And that's the other part of the story that we cannot simply erase. We have a challenge. We have a challenge. We must at all costs continue to maintain the bipartisan support for the U.S.-Israel relationship, not as a gift to us, no, but as essential to America's well-being, security, and future. We have work to do, my friends. And while you're all choosing parties for November, and bless you for whatever you choose, those of us who care about Israel and the U.S.-Israel relationship have to look beyond our own party and understand there's no schadenfreude in watching one party emerge and another party split. We have to restore the unity of our Congress fully in support of these two flags. And I just want to end. Let's not just talk about 1,200 people killed on October 7th, tragic though it is, and a big multiple of this tragedy. But in American proportional terms, 42,000 people were killed on October the 7th. Some 3,000 people were killed on December 7th, 1941, and September 11th, 2011. And after both those attacks, this country went to war. In the case of Japan, we went to war for nearly 4 years. And in the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, I needn't tell you how long, how many lives, and how much treasure. But it's only Israel, it seems, among the nations of the world that is never allowed to finish a war. From day 2, after the tears of day 1, all of a sudden we're reminded about international humanitarian law and proportionality. And then it's all about famine and genocide and everything else they can come up with. And Israel is fighting with one hand tied behind its back. But no, the Deputy Consul General said it. Israel has reinvented the meaning of being a Jew. And we American Jews, I believe, need to stop telling ourselves how much we do for Israel and begin to tell ourselves what Israel has done for us. And more than anything, I would say it has given us a spinal transplant. We lived in fear for centuries. We lived in fear of the pogroms, of the inquisitions, of the persecutions, of the auto da fes, of the forced conversions. You know it as well as I. We lived in fear. We had no means to defend ourselves. The world may rather pity a weak Jew than admire a strong Jew, but given the choice, I take the strong Jew. And a strong Jew with an enveloping sense of morality and ethics. It's not strong for the sake of strength. It's strong for the sake of peace and stability and prosperity. So I end by asking us to think about October the 8th, when the Tzava, the IDF, issued as many as 350,000 calls to reservists, many of whom were around the world, some in Latin America, on that year after military service, and some in Goa and elsewhere in Asia. I'm sorry, I hope I said 300,000 because I was giving away my punchline otherwise. They issued 300,000 calls. 350,000 people responded to the call for 300,000. That's the spinal transplant we need. Because I want to be sure, not just as a Jew, but a proud American, that if America ever, God forbid, finds itself in a similar situation again, that 350,000 Americans will respond to the call for 300,000 to show up and defend this country. That's what we need to learn from Israel. Am Yisrael Chai.
Mic drop. Thank you, David. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for your invaluable contribution. Thank you for sharing your experiences, and most of all, thank you for sharing your wisdom. As David mentioned, an hour ago, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz landed, and we are fortunate to have her with us tonight. She was in Buenos Aires, Argentina last week on July 18th, attending the AMIA's attack 30th anniversary commemoration. Congresswoman, please, I'd like you to share with us your impressions.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you so much for your commitment to always ensure that the AMIA bombing is commemorated, that the memories of the lost are preserved, and that justice, which has still not been realized, is always pursued until it has been realized. I know we all appreciate your efforts so much, and thank you to ATJC, to Rabbi Cohn, and to all of my, some sadly former constituents. It is good to see you again, good to be back here on this bima, and I know this is a Broward and Miami-Dade community effort, so I have some people who I do still represent here, and it's an honor and a privilege to do so. David, it's good to see you, it's good to hear you, and it's been a long and difficult 9 months, and I know so many of us have felt the trauma in the aftermath of October 7th. Prior to October 7th, though, the largest attack on Jews anywhere in the world since the Holocaust was the AMIA bombing 30 years ago, in which 85 people were killed, murdered, I should say, and over 300 injured. I was privileged to travel to Buenos Aires last week, as Jenny mentioned, so that a delegation from the United States Congress could offer our heartfelt condolences for the tragic loss of life, which occurred there 3 decades ago, and made clear that we remain committed to working with Argentina to find justice for the victims of that terrorist attack. And as a Jew and as a co-chair of the Latino Jewish caucus that is hosted by AJC in the United States Congress, it was particularly meaningful for me to be in Buenos Aires for that anniversary. The bombing remains a lingering trauma for Jews there and a source of ongoing pain for Jews everywhere, animating our worst fears about the deadly risk all societies assume when they allow anti-Semitism to spread unfettered. We had an opportunity to attend the ceremony for the commemoration of the bombing and hear from families, as many of us have heard from hostage families, as I did multiple times this week. And their stories, their heartbreak, were absolutely searing. Listening to the siblings and spouses and parents of the lost, who not only are bereft because of the absence of their loved one for all of these years, but also because they have known who the perpetrators were for nearly all of those years, that Hezbollah committed and was responsible for these heinous acts of murder, and that, unfortunately, the government of Argentina was complicit in a cover-up of those murders. Thankfully now, we have had a step forward as far as progress. President Milei, who our delegation had an opportunity to meet with, has been supportive of trying to make sure that the underbrush is cleared away, the courts finally are, and the Congress in Argentina is finally moving forward to change the federal law in Argentina to ensure that the perpetrators can be tried in absentia and that some measure of accountability can finally be brought. I'm proud to have introduced a resolution in the United States Congress alongside my Latino Jewish caucus colleagues, including my South Florida friend, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, to honor this somber anniversary and demand accountability for the perpetrators and justice for the victims and their loved ones. I wish I could say that our world and all Jews are safer today after those 30 years, but sadly, as David accounted so vividly, that is simply not true. The same heartbreaking yearning for justice and closure that I heard from AMIA survivors, I've heard for months from the victims of October 7th and from the families of hostages in Gaza. I had an opportunity to be in Israel 3 times, both In the immediate aftermath of October 7th, I was in a congressional delegation that was in the region in Saudi Arabia when the attacks happened, and we were in Israel on October 10th, and the first delegation that met with both families of hostages and victims and Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli leadership. Since Hamas's attack on Israel, record levels, as David accounted, of anti-Semitism have resulted in a significant fear and real harm to Jews, in real life harm to Jews around the world. One of the most disturbing trends since October 7th has been the mainstreaming of anti-Semitic rhetoric by influencers and elected officials around the world. The AMIA tragedy reminds us that it only takes a few people with the means and the motivation to shatter a community forever. The internet has made those means and the radical extremist motivation to harm Jews more prevalent and dangerous than ever. While we were in Buenos Aires, I convened a hearing of the Interparliamentary Task Force to Combat Online Anti-Semitism, which I am proud to co-chair. We used the context of the AMIA commemoration as an opportunity to analyze the link between digital hate and real-life violence while discussing imperative solutions. As anti-Semitic content jumps from cyberspace to the real world, it's incumbent on us to focus on detecting, containing, and responding to rising threats in cooperation with law enforcement, government platforms, and tech companies, community leaders, and civil society. We can't go back to before there was an internet, but we must leverage innovations like artificial intelligence and machine learning to help stop the spread of online hate. Our hearing focused on the innovative steps that some companies, social media companies, have taken to curb these harms and discuss steps that we as parliamentarians must demand to address these challenges. We must hold the social media companies accountable for moderating their content and making sure that viral hate is not allowed to spread indiscriminately and then jump outside of the virtual world into real life. We're watching that happen more and more, and it is essential that we make sure that because our nations have artificial boundaries, in the line between Broward and Miami-Dade, just north of here, is human-made, as are the national boundaries that we have across the globe. So the internet is the way that we connect with one another, and that's why creating this interparliamentary task force was so critical, so that we could work together across the globe and make sure that we work together to change our laws in each of our countries so that we could hold the fire of the social media companies, because they are certainly not making changes rapidly enough to protect people who utilize their platforms. And it was invaluable to connect with lawmakers from all around the world, especially from Latin American countries right now, because we certainly know that there are some leaders who have been elected and not elected there who are really trafficking in dangerous tropes and in anti-Semitic hate and intentionally spewing anti-Israel and anti-Jewish hate online. And so to hear my colleagues across the globe's perspectives and show our solidarity with one another, with the Jewish communities in these countries, has been so critical. I was so grateful to take part in this delegation so we could demonstrate U.S. commitment and resolve on key goals: fighting anti-Semitism, promoting freedom and human rights in Latin America, and building strong relationships with our global partners, and also sending a strong message to the leadership of Argentina that the U.S. has their back, that we will lend our credibility and our support as they move forward in ensuring accountability for the perpetrators and ensuring that both in terms of justice and the solace that would come with that justice, that we can provide some measure of healing to the families whose hearts were torn away 30 years ago. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for sharing with us your personal experience. I hope you get some rest tonight. I call on now Guido before closing, Rabbi Cohen, I'm sorry. before closing the event.
You can all call me Guido. It's the name my mother chose for me. I just want to close before Jennifer has the last word by thanking, because many of you may think that this is the result of the work of an organization. But this is the result of the work of a small group of 5 people that envisioned the event and gathered a lot of support from many sponsoring organizations and other volunteers to make this happen. This is the first time in the history of this event that is not organized by an organization and its professional, but just by a group of 5 people. Alicia, Deborah, Jennifer, Marina, and Joe, thank you very much to you, to all those who collaborated with this event, and of course, thank you to Juan Dircy, because the true work of a leader is seen when that leader steps aside and his work continues. So this is a seed that Juan planted decades ago, and the fact that this event is still happening without your professional leadership speaks very highly of the caliber of a Jewish professional that you are. Thank you all.
Thank you, Guido. On behalf of the Planning Committee, Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center, all tonight's sponsors, I would like to thank our group of exceptional volunteers and the professionals at ATJC, particularly Suzanne, Gabi, Joseph, Orlando, who helped with the event's planning and execution. A very personal and special thank you goes to my fabulous and tireless co-chair, Alicia Margulis. Please stand up. Commitment to keeping the memory of AMIA alive is unmatched. 30 years after the attack, justice delayed is justice denied. I know the line by heart. We've been saying it for the past 30 years. We must always remember and honor the lives of the 85 victims who perished. This attack impacted not only Latin America's largest Jewish community, but it also affects each and every one of us here today. We know that silence is a tragic response to anti-Semitism. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you all for being here tonight supporting this cause. We're deeply grateful for your presence. Please join us in sharing tonight's message with your friends, your colleagues, your families. Good night, buenas noches, shalom, laila tov, Am Israel Chai. There is some nice desserts and refreshments in the back.